Hello everyone, welcome to the Indie Fantasy Club. Today we're going to be reviewing The Fall of the Hammer by Serdar Yegulalp. This book is about a world that is controlled by these mysterious cubes called Aleaum, which gives the user the power to basically manipulate matter. However, only one Aleaum master can exist within a domain at any given time, and they are the ones who decide how the domain is built. Some prefer nature integrating with their structures and their people, while others prefer metal and crystal in organized, meticulous patterns. People can't move between domains either. They are trapped wherever they are located, which means they're trapped in whatever world the Aleaum master wants to build. But it is important to note that these Aleaum cubes are fueled by the wants and desires of the people in their domains, so they kind of feed the domain master in a sense. And the way that these cubes work, it kind of reminded me of like a Green Lantern, where they can control things with their will as long as they have access to these cubes. But these cubes are like constantly popping up all over the world, so Aleaum masters as a result are constantly hunting them down to try and steal and collect all of them to protect their own power and their own lives. And this story is about how Jotham wants to end the reign of Aleaum masters across the entire world. So with that context in mind, let's dive into this indie review. This book was a tough one for me to rank. In the end, I had to give it a 7.5 out of 10 on the immersion scale. I had a really hard time getting immersed in this world, and that's mostly because I didn't particularly like the writing style. It was written in a type of like third-person omniscient, mostly, sort of, and it was written well, but I just didn't feel as attached or engaged with the characters of the story because of that style. It felt way more like a narrative being told to me rather than just actually experiencing the story for myself with the characters. And so I just wasn't lost in this world. I was like hovering above it, kind of observing what was going on, just watching things happen passively. But other than that, it has a very unique premise, and it's super creative. So I have to give props and kudos for that. The different domains had their own unique personalities and character traits and cultures. The structure of the world itself was constantly evolving. New creatures and elements were often introduced. So it was actually a very interesting world. I just didn't like the writing style. You're gonna hear me say this a lot, but if you like omniscient writing, this book is probably gonna rank a lot higher for you than it did for me. Again, due to the writing style, I just personally didn't feel as much of an emotional connection to these characters. So I ended up giving the names a 7 out of 10. Now, in this book, we follow a group of characters as they journey through different domains to overthrow these Aleaum masters, with the main focus on Jotham, who is a young, budding Aleaum master. So let's just start with some things that I didn't love. Let's just get it out of the way. I really felt like these characters had way too much external drive rather than internal momentum and proactivity. What I mean by that is these characters rarely made choices based off of moral or ethical forks in the road where they're forced to develop and grow as a character by choosing things based on the character traits that they're trying to develop. Instead, they were always kind of just driven to and fro by like the external events that were happening around them. People dying, domains collapsing, creatures coming to attack them. Like there were all these external drivers forcing them to make decisions. And I just didn't like that as much because I didn't feel like it gave the characters a chance to really make choices and develop and grow based off of their own internal conflicts that they're struggling with. So because they didn't have as much internal conflict or weren't challenged on their ideas or beliefs as much, and it got like that a little bit towards the end, but not as much as it really needed. So I think that was a problem for me with connecting with these characters. They just weren't very compelling because instead of them making those active choices, they were just constantly forced into situations by things happening all around them in the world. I just didn't like that. Now, on the bright side, we'll end on a good note. The dialogue was very realistic and engaging, and the internal motivations that they did have did feel justified. And I also think the characters had good motivation and team chemistry. I just wanted to see maybe more proactivity from them and maybe even a little bit more conflict between these characters. The magic itself was probably the highlight of the book for me, which is why I gave it an 8.5 out of 10. So you've got the Aleaum cubes, which basically act like Green Lantern rings. So they basically bond with a user and grant them the ability to reshape the matter in their domain. But it's fueled by the people's wants and desires in that domain. But there are also people in the world with a natural affiliation for magic that don't need Aleaum to fuel their magic. Some can create portals, illusions, or suppress or amplify other people's powers. These powers can be combined to create new abilities, which is just really cool to read about. And there were very real costs and consequences to the magic system. And not only that, the magic is constantly evolving and changing throughout the story, which I thought was really interesting. With that said, it did take some time for me to fully understand how the magic system worked, especially with how much it changes over time. And again, I just feel like it didn't have as much of the wow factor or engagement because I felt like I was being told how the magic worked as opposed to experiencing it with the characters and learning these things with them as we went along. But still really, really cool. From a plot perspective, the book works pretty well. But from a pacing perspective, I had a rough time with it. So in the end, I scored the infrastructure a 6.5 out of 10. There were just such long stretches in the story where it felt like nothing happened or there was no point to dragging something out as long as it was, or I just felt like things could have been just significantly condensed to help with some of that pacing issues. So for me personally, it just kind of made it a slog to get through the story, rather than an exciting story and journey that kind of built to a satisfying conclusion. So that's why it took me so freaking long to finish this book. Kind of set my schedule back a little bit, but I was determined to finish it because again, it was written well, and I always want to give people the benefit of the doubt because so many fantasy books get so good after the halfway mark, and DNFing a book that is written well that I just personally don't enjoy, I just can't bring myself to do it, especially for authors that are submitting to me. So it took me a little bit longer, but we did finish it. But yeah, I just felt like some of the pacing really made it difficult for me. And that's the other thing, because the premise was that basically Jotham wants to overthrow all of these Aleaum masters, I guess I was expecting a little more pizzazz, a little more action or oomph to the story. Instead, the ending sort of fizzled out because I didn't feel like that goal was really accomplished in a satisfying way for me. It was still a good conclusion, but it just wasn't satisfying. Would say more on this, but again, I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm just going to leave it at that. So we might as well just jump right to the enjoyment score, which Teddy's here to soften the blow, because I gave it a 5 out of 10. I just kept waiting for the story to resonate for me, and it just never did. The first half of the book was brutal to get through. I really thought about just putting the book down and just moving on, but to be fair, the second half of the story did pick up the pace a little bit, and I was able to get through that second half a lot quicker, but it was still just not clicking for me. Ultimately, I really think that it was just the writing style that really killed this one for me. And that's just a personal preference, so I don't hold that against the author. I know that a lot of people like this writing style. For me, it was just really tough to resonate with. If you like Omniscient, you're gonna like this more than I did, but I just have a really hard time with that style. I guess I didn't know that until I really read this story, but I haven't read Omniscient in so long that this was really a new experience for me as an adult reader. I think I just prefer character-driven narratives. I like to be able to experiencing these events and these things with these characters. So I just could never get fully immersed or invested in the characters, and so I just had a harder time with the story. But I do give credit for creativity. I'm always saying that fantasy authors should be pushing the boundaries of what currently exists or what's possible. And I feel like this book does a really good job of that. And I was really hoping to like this one more by the end, but I'm afraid it just never happened. But that's okay. That's why my opinion and my enjoyment is only one component of the overall score. You'll have to give this one a read and let me know how it ranks for you. And that leaves The Fall of the Hammer with an overall score of 6.9 out of 10. I am really curious what you all would think about this story though. Like, I think my own personal preferences really did some damage to the overall score. So what do you all prefer? Do you like omniscient writing styles? I feel like I haven't read one of those in a long time. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now let's do a quick bonus design review. This was sent to me as an ebook, so this is what we are going to be working with. Come in a little closer. Absolutely atrocious cover. Terrible. Okay, scoot back. One of the most boring covers I have ever seen, especially with how much you had to work with in this world. Why not do Jotham holding his Aleaum cube over his head with magic pouring all around him? Or a perspective of two super different domains clashing up against each other so we can see two completely different perspectives. Or a Kukuli smashing through the city, waiting to eat Aleaum. I could think of a dozen scenes from this book that would make for amazing cover art. But instead, we get this dull, gray, stock image of a cube. It really doesn't do the story justice. That's all I'm saying. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to check out my other book reviews on the channel. And if you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe to join the Indie Fantasy Club and grow this community of indie authors and indie fantasy readers. I appreciate you all, and I will see you in the next video.